occasion. Perhaps we'd like to begin by a message from the SACP.
Mahendra, thank you very much, and to your viewers, we would like, of course, as the South African Communist Party, also to join millions of South Africans, and indeed more millions worldwide, to express our condolences to Mam Grace Machel and the Mandela family on the loss of what we call the old man. And also to his comrades, and colleagues in the African National Congress, our ally, to say that, of course, their loss is our loss, because most of Comrade Madiba's political life, he spent working with communists, from when he was a young leader until his last moment. And he remained what we call a very good friend of the Communist Party and South African communists. So in that way, we really feel honored, to have had a relationship with a leader like him in the alliance, and in being in the trenches with the communists and with someone like himself for all these decades until our final liberation. And also he became president. And right up till his end, he really valued the alliance and valued the relationship that the ANC had with the South African Communist Party.
Talk us through some of those, the bonds that he had with members of the alliance, and also the importance that the alliance had for him.
Of course, Mahendra, it didn't start smoothly, because as a young man, in his late 40s and early 50s, he used to talk about this, He used to break up meetings of the Communist Party because he regarded Marxism as a foreign ideology, and didn't quite understand. Until actually, as he say, his turning point was when he was approached, by the late Moses Kotane, who was General Secretary of the SACP. He went to where he was staying in Alexandria to say, but Mandela, why are you fighting against communists? Because we are fighting for the same thing, against the national oppression of the black majority in this country. And Mandela himself began to say, actually, it dawned on him that, yes, the communists are allies rather than enemies, we should. And then, of course, he said that brilliantly in the Rivonia trial speech, when he said the communists were the only ones who were actually within the trenches, genuinely in the struggle to get rid of national oppression in South Africa. He belonged then to that very special generation, which not only believed in the alliance, but also they also built that alliance. And I think what is important sometimes, which doesn't come across, Madiba, rightly so, gets presented as a great unifier of the nation, someone who believes in national reconciliation. But he always said, if we are to build a united South Africa, we need a united alliance first, as the main vehicle that actually would drive this united nation. It won't happen on its own unless there is actually this unity. So his commitment went in so far. You will remember P.W. Porter at some stage was saying he must renounce violence, renounce relationship with the communists. He said, no enemy of yours can tell you who your friends should be, or that you should renounce your friends. That was the kind of a person he was. Very, very principled, in terms of commitment. And sometimes you would disagree. As if you give me a chance, I'll give you one example, that.
Sure.
But at the same time, you would be able to listen. I remember one of the first political encounters I had with him was in 1992. It wasn't the first encounter, but one that showed me a side of Mandela I had not known. When the armed struggle was being suspended, he went to KwaZulu-Natal to announce this, at a time when the violence was at its height, and we felt that as the ANC and the Communist Party, we were being butchered by the apartheid regime. And I was one of those who was asked to stand up and oppose that decision. So when he came in, because we had had to actually announce this, indeed, I stood up as I was assigned by my region in the Natal Midlands, although it was all the regions in KwaZulu-Natal, and argued, I thought, very eloquently as a young man, He then stood up and said, he didn't hear my name properly, he thought I was Blaze, he was calling me that. He said, yes, I was a young man like you at some stage, and I was angry as you are. And you're absolutely right to be angry under these circumstances. But can you answer me? How is your anger going to take us from point A to point B? How is your anger going to take us from a violent South Africa to a peaceful South Africa? If you can't answer that, then your anger is misdirected. You know, it was very profound because in a way, yes, he was saying that you are entitled to be angry. You are right to be angry in these circumstances, you know.
Yes.
But think about where we want to be tomorrow.
Yes. It was a gentle way and a persuasive way of turning your mind around.
Absolutely. You know, it was, of course, I didn't agree at that time. I thought, well, the old man is really just coming here to just let things continue as they are, you know, and said, maybe perhaps he doesn't understand because he's coming out of prison and so on. But now I fully understand what he was actually doing. It was actually to say, fine to be angry, but what's your strategy? What's your method of actually getting us where we want to be? Which was very profound, you know, arising out of lots of experience.
He was a master of strategy, and he knew when to shift strategies depending on the mood at the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, he was very good at that. Although, of course, as he says, he wasn't an angel. Once he had made his decision, you know, he could actually be very hard-headed, you know, and say, but you have to convince me why we have to change on this thing that has been discussed, that we've actually... Something that often helps sometimes.
Of course.
You know?
No, a really powerful leader. Tell us about some of the lighter moments in your interactions with Madiba.
Yes, there are many, but the one that I remember was in 2001 during the World Conference Against Racism in Durban. You know. He called, he was no longer president. And actually I was amazed. Oh, the old man is calling. We used to call them in that on the side, you know, the old man, Tom Dal.
Yes.
You see, and so I pick up the phone. So he says, in his typical way, Blade, how are you? I say, no, Tata, I'm fine. How are you? He says, you know what? I want you to help me. And I said, what, Tata? Of course, anything. He said, there's a communist who's going to be visiting me here. Now, I'm scared of communists. I don't want to be on my own. I just thought, let me call my own communist to be with me here so that he can prefer me. In fact, he was inviting me to his private meeting with Fidel Castro.
Wow.
And Fidel was actually here in 2001.
Yes.
And after the end of the conference, he went past to speak to Martin. I sat with the two of them for 1 hour.
Wow.
You know, just listening to them, reminiscing, you know. Castro's own jail experiences, although he was saying, of course, I can't even talk about jail experience compared to you, Mandela, you know, and so on. And talking about how Cuba is doing, how South Africa is doing. But one thing struck me about Madiba at the time, by the way, is that he really had finished his term as president because he was very reluctant to talk about what government policy was at the time, you know, and so on. He would talk very broadly and leave that to President Thabo Mbeki, who was president at the time. But it was really an honor, but in his own way of humor. And that, to me, also sent a message of his continued respect for the Communist Party.
Yes. And for you as well.
Oh, yes, for me personally. I have that photograph. It's still a very special photograph with the two of them.
Most definitely. Now, tell us about some of the highlights of this week for you, or, you know, the memorial service,
Yes, it's a big event, you know. In fact, much as this is a sad moment, but also it's a time to celebrate the life of Nelson Mandela. We appreciate, of course, the role that we are playing in terms of using this as an opportunity to educate South Africa, especially our youngsters, not only about Nelson Mandela, but about where we come from. Of course, we had the main memorial service, you know, which was a very important moment for us. That is why, by the way, as the South African Communist Party, we think it's important that we condemn that kind of behavior that happened at that official memorial service. That was a shame to the world when the nation is actually on us. That's why we'll use this opportunity to call all South Africans to respect and honor the memory of Madiba with dignity, because what happened there was actually throwing mud at his sacrifices. And of course, there are lots of memorial services that are being called, and we call on our people to come out in their numbers to actually honor this man. But most importantly for us, Mahendra, is for every South African to ask a question. how do I contribute to nation building like Madiba did? In my own way. Whether, as I was saying on radio earlier, whether about ensuring that my school is functional, that there is teaching and learning, that my community is a cohesive community, that I participate. Nation building, you don't need to be a president, you don't need to be a cabinet minister, you need to be a concrete South African. That is how we can all honor Madiba in order to build a really cohesive and a functional nation.
Thank you very much indeed. On that very powerful and very telling note, the notion of nation building is the way that South Africa has to actually, South Africans of all walks, from all walks of life, need to contribute.
Thank you very much. Do not throw stones. Ask yourself what contribution I can make.
Thank you so